In the autumn of 1966, in a workshop at the AB Volvo facility in Eskilstuna, Sweden, a Volvo engineer named Lars Hammer finished a prototype that the factory team had nicknamed Gravel Charlie. The formal designation was the BM Volvo DR631. The prototype was the first hinged-frame off-road dump truck ever built. A tractor unit at the front, a dump body at the rear, an articulation pivot in the middle. That single 1966 prototype invented the articulated dump truck. Today, 6 decades later, Volvo Construction Equipment owns roughly 45% of the global articulated dump truck market. The Volvo A60H, with a 60-ton payload, is the largest articulated hauler in production anywhere in the world. Bell Equipment of Richards Bay, South Africa, holds roughly 20% of the segment, with the B60E. Hydrema of northern Denmark holds another slice with the 922F. Komatsu, Doosan, and a few smaller manufacturers split most of what remains. Caterpillar makes articulated dump trucks. The CAT 730, the 735, and the 740 are built out of facilities in Peterlee, England, and Decatur, Illinois. CAT is in the segment. CAT has never led the segment. CAT has never been first in the segment, second in the segment, or even in serious contention for first or second. But this is not a CAT engineering story. This is a CAT corporate decision story. Caterpillar did not enter the articulated truck segment until 1985. In 1985, Lars Hammer's Gravel Charlie was already 19 years into production refinement. Volvo Construction Equipment had been compounding articulated truck engineering for 2 full decades before Caterpillar wrote the first check to enter the segment. If you have driven articulated trucks in any mining or earth-moving operation for the last 20 years, and you have watched the Volvo Yellow take share from Caterpillar across every continent that matters, subscribe. The channel works through one machine class, one corporate decision, one European factory at a time. The list is long. Today, the articulated. Let's look at the machine. A Volvo A60H has a 60-ton nominal payload, articulation on 3 axes through the pivot joint, and a drive system that puts power to all 6 wheels through the articulated frame. The terrain capability is what defines the segment. Articulated trucks exist because rigid frame off-highway trucks like the CAT 770 or the Komatsu HD 980 cannot work on the steep, soft, broken ground of an iron ore stripping operation or a wet sand quarry. The articulated geometry lets the truck climb a 15% grade with a full load, while the rigid frame truck is bottoming out on the haul road. A Caterpillar 740 has a 40-ton payload, the same general articulated geometry, and a comparable drive layout. The CAT 740 is a competent machine. The CAT 740 is not a Volvo A60H. The gap on payload is 20 tons per haul, which, on a typical iron ore stripping operation, moving 30 million tons per year, translates into about 70 fewer trucks needed in the Volvo fleet to move the same tonnage. 70 trucks is real money. 70 trucks is real fuel. 70 trucks is real operator labor. Then there is the articulation itself. Volvo holds engineering patents on the pivot joint architecture, going back to 1977. The cumulative refinement of that joint, generation after generation through the A20, A25, A30, A40, A45, A60H, is what an industry analyst means when he says Volvo owns the segment. The pivot moves freely under load on terrain that physically stops a Caterpillar 740. The audience that has run both machines knows this. The audience that has supervised a haul road in the rain knows this. The CAT 740 is built in Peterlee, in northeast England, in the same facility Caterpillar acquired from Brown Engineering in 1985, which used to build a machine called the DJB articulated truck. Brown Engineering had been the CAT dealer in the UK, and built the DJB as an attempt to enter the articulated segment in the early 1980s, 20 years after Volvo invented it. Caterpillar bought the DJB operation, renamed the trucks under the CAT brand, and continued building them out of Peterlee. This is the entire architecture of the CAT articulated truck business. A 1985 acquisition of a UK dealer that had built an articulated truck because Brown Engineering had figured out, by 1980, that they could not be a serious CAT dealer in the European market without an articulated truck offering. CAT bought the dealer and the truck. CAT did not invent any of it. CAT has been refining the DJB architecture for 40 years, while Volvo has been refining the Gravel Charlie architecture for 60 years. Walk through the operator station on a Volvo A60H. The cab layout was redesigned in the F Series, and then again in the G Series, and again in the H Series. Each iteration informed by direct operator feedback from Swedish, Norwegian, and Canadian iron ore operations, from South African coal operations, from Australian iron ore operations. The seat suspension is calibrated for 10-hour shifts on broken haul roads. The control layout puts every function within the same reach the operator uses on the Volvo A40 he drove last decade. Continuity is engineering. Walk through the operator station on a CAT 740GC. The layout is competent, durable, and unmistakably designed by an engineering team that has been benchmarking against Volvo for 40 years and has never closed the gap. The cab is solid. The cab is not a Volvo cab. Operator preference, measured in operator turnover at mining contractors who run mixed fleets of both brands, consistently favors the Volvo seat for 10-hour shifts. The CAT seat is fine for an 8-hour day. Volvo built the truck for the 10-hour day at the iron ore mine. Step back from one truck and look at the dealer network. The audience knows this part already. Volvo Construction Equipment has plants in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, in Cannes, Germany, in Belly, France, in Goderich, Canada, and the Eskilstuna home plant in Sweden. The dealer network is global. The parts inventory is European disciplined. The service response time on an A60H, broken down in northern Sweden, is measured in hours, not days. Caterpillar has the dealer network too. The CAT Global Service Organization is the strongest asset Caterpillar has, and the part of the company audience members consistently praise, even when they are angry at Caterpillar for everything else. But on articulated trucks specifically, the CAT dealer is selling a machine the customer often does not want. The dealer is offering the 740 when the customer asks for an A60H. The dealer is competing on price, on lead time, on financing terms, because the dealer is not competing on the truck. The dealer service network on articulated trucks tells you everything. In 1999, Volvo Construction Equipment opened its first major Australian dealer operation in the Pilbara region to support the iron ore mining fleet. Volvo committed to the Pilbara because Volvo was selling articulated trucks into the Pilbara at scale. Caterpillar dealer CJD Equipment, then Westrac, had been in the Pilbara for decades, selling rigid-frame trucks, dozers, graders, and excavators. CJD Equipment was not selling articulated trucks at the same volume. CAT had the dealer, Volvo had the trucks. If you operate an articulated hauler yourself, the operator tier at $5.99 gets you early access to videos like this one. Subscribe, and the next 20 European versus American breakdowns come straight to your feed. Link in the description. Now let's go back to the corporate decision. In 1985, Caterpillar acquired the DJB operation in Peterlee. The strategic logic at the time was reasonable. Volvo had created an off-road truck segment. Caterpillar was the global leader in heavy construction equipment. Caterpillar had a global dealer network. Caterpillar could enter the segment, leverage the dealer network, and compete on CAT's strengths. Two things happened that the 1985 CAT strategic plan did not account for. First, Volvo continued compounding the engineering refinement. Every 2 to 3 years, Volvo released a generation update on the articulated platform. A 20, a 25, a 30, a 35, a 40, a 45, a 60, F Series, G Series, H Series. Each generation tightened the gap with rigid frame trucks on flat ground, while widening the lead on soft and steep ground. CAT refined the 730 and the 740 in parallel, generation after generation, but always responding to Volvo, never leading. Second, Volvo built the global Mittelstand-style service network that the audience now expects. Volvo Construction Equipment was not just selling articulated trucks. Volvo was selling the system. Wheel loaders, excavators, articulated haulers, all coming from the same plant ecosystem, the same parts catalog, the same training program. A mine operator who bought a Volvo articulated truck in 1990 could expect to see a Volvo dealer technician on the haul road within the same shift if something failed. Caterpillar in 1985 had the same global dealer network capability. Caterpillar in 1990 chose not to prioritize the articulated truck segment within that network. The Cat 740 was a product line, not a strategic priority. By the early 2000s, the Cat 730 and 740 were generating respectable revenue, but were a clear second tier within the Cat product portfolio. They still are. In 2017, Caterpillar moved corporate headquarters from Peoria, Illinois to Chicago, Illinois. Within 18 months, Caterpillar moved again from Chicago to Irving, Texas. The executive team making capital allocation decisions about whether to double down on the articulated truck segment was 3,000 miles and a different corporate culture removed from the Decatur, Illinois plant where the C-Series 740 was being built. The articulated truck segment did not get the corporate attention it would have needed to close the gap with Volvo. The corporate attention went to mining trucks, to bulldozers, to motor graders, to the segments where Caterpillar was already leading. Some balance is worth stating clearly. Caterpillar remains the global #1 heavy construction equipment manufacturer overall, with roughly 3 times the market share of Volvo construction equipment across all product segments combined. In rigid frame mining trucks like the 793F and 797F, Caterpillar still holds dominant positions in many global markets. The argument here is not that Caterpillar is finished. The argument is that in the articulated dump truck segment specifically, the segment Volvo invented in 1966, Caterpillar holds a distant 3rd or 4th position behind Volvo, Bell, and sometimes Komatsu, and has not made any move in 40 years that suggests this position is going to change. Now let's go back to Eskilstuna. AB Volvo opened the Eskilstuna construction equipment facility in the early 1960s, building on the legacy of the Bolinder-Munktel heavy equipment business that Volvo had absorbed in 1950. Bolinder-Munktel had been making heavy machinery in Eskilstuna since the 1800s. The engineering culture Volvo inherited was already a century deep before Lars Hammer started sketching Gravel Charlie. When Hammer built the DR631, he was working inside an engineering culture that had been refining off-road heavy iron since before the United States entered the Second World War. That 100-year compounding is the part Caterpillar cannot reproduce by hiring engineers away from Eskilstuna or by buying a UK dealer in 1985. The Eskilstuna plant has been doing one thing, refining off-road heavy iron, for more than a century. The Decatur, Illinois plant has been doing the Cat 740 for 30 years and inherited the DJB chassis from Peterlee in 1985. 100 years versus 30. The auction sheet already knows the answer. Look ahead 5 years to 2030. By 2030, the global iron ore stripping operations will have largely transitioned to autonomous and partially electric haul truck fleets. Liebherr, Komatsu, and Volvo Construction Equipment are leading the autonomous articulated truck race. Caterpillar is participating. Caterpillar is not leading. The Volvo A60H autonomous prototype was already running tests in northern Sweden by 2024. The Cat 740 autonomous capability remains a product line item, not a flagship offering. The Volvo Construction Equipment share of the global articulated truck segment in 2030 will likely be higher than the roughly 45% it holds today. The Bell equipment share will likely hold around 20% because Bell continues to win cost-sensitive operations in Africa, South America, and parts of Southeast Asia. The Caterpillar share will likely remain in the 10 to 15% range that the 740 has held for the past decade. Here is what the Caterpillar dealer will not tell you. The Volvo A60H has the payload. The Volvo A60H has the articulation pivot patent history. The Volvo A60H has the operator seat that the audience driving 10-hour shifts will choose every time. The Volvo dealer has the parts inventory in the Pilbara. The Volvo dealer has the parts inventory in Kiruna. The Volvo dealer has the parts inventory in Antofagasta. The Cat dealer has the brand recognition and the financing terms, and the customer is choosing Volvo anyway. Tell me in the comments what articulated truck you would buy with your own money for a real haul operation. Volvo A60H, Bell B60E, Caterpillar 740, Hydrema 922F. The auction prices already know the answer, and if you are wondering whether Caterpillar can come back to dominance in the articulated truck segment over the next decade, the answer is in the next Volvo Construction Equipment quarterly report. Watch what the A60H autonomous prototype enters production. Watch what Caterpillar does not announce. The next articulated truck Caterpillar builds will compete on price. Not on payload, not on articulation, not on operator comfort, on price. That is the segment Caterpillar has been competing in since 1985, and the segment Caterpillar has never won. Lars Hammer built Gravel Charlie in 1966. 60 years later, the truck that took over the global articulated segment is still being built in the Eskilstuna plant. The Decatur 740 competes for floor space inside the larger Caterpillar product portfolio. The auction sheet, the dealer network, and the next Volvo Construction Equipment quarterly report all already know how the next decade is going to look. The Volvo yellow articulated truck is the iron ore mine. The Caterpillar 740 is the bid the customer politely declines.